welcome to the Ginger Geek Show. What is the Ginger Geek Show? I hear you cry. It's purely and simply going to be a love letter to fandom. Now, I love Marvel, Doctor Who, Star Wars, action movies, James Bond, many different types of franchises, and I wanted to have a show where it can showcase off that passion, and hopefully in time have many different guests that can also showcase off their said passion. But first, let's talk about episode 1, the first show here. So in a wee bit we have a toy review. We're going to talk about a new Doctor Who set, but first let's get into our interview from Billy's Bond Art. The man is absolutely fantastic. He does great art. I have the link on, and also the description you will see the link to his Instagram, which will take it onto his actual site as well. So let's get into the interview. As I said, he's fantastic, and simply I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Billy, to the Ginger Geek Show. Thank you so much for joining.
You're more than welcome. Delighted to be here.
How
Am
are
I,
you?
in fact, the first guest?
You are. This is the first episode. I've went way too big. Good luck to me after this.
Man, it's first of many, I hope.
I hope. It's been something I've been wanting to do for years. Just the whole point of this is bringing people like yourself with such huge passions and kind of talking about it. And so, yeah, very kind of excited about that. So you keeping well then? You all good?
I'm very good. I've had a very chilled out day, to be quite honest. I'm in a very chill zone right now.
Quite right. So, as I said, we've got some questions. We're going to go through it a little bit about yourself, a bit of kind of Bond discussion, and then kind of lastly some viewers' questions that they've kind of sent in. So, the kind of first thing I want to talk about for viewers that are maybe watching, they just don't know you, Billy. What is Billy's Bond Art, and what is it you do with Billy's Bond Art?
Billy's Bond Art is my Instagram channel or page, whatever you want to call it. Which is pretty much where I put out quite a large stream of James Bond specific fan art that I paint with watercolors. That's it in a nutshell. It's also my little space to post anything Bond related, my travels or going to events or pictures of the bear and stuff.
Oh, the wee bit.
So it's overall, it's more about me channeling all my Bond energy into one place. But my in is art, because that's another one of my passions. So I decided one day just to combine the two and see what happened. And it turned into hundreds of paintings.
Just a bit, yeah. Because you did a whole, like for the 60th anniversary, you did quite a big project of wanting to celebrate those 60 years by showcasing off kind of which I've got. I don't think they were part of this. I can't actually remember, but I'm doing a plug of that because I've still get to put these up, because it's one of those things where I don't want to like ruin them. Do you know what I mean? And I know that, but like these are just fantastic. Like they're generally brilliant. I need to get more, because I realised I must have missed it, because I realised that you actually did the Skyfall shot, the Aston Martin driving up. It wasn't until, here's another plug, because we're going to talk about it, the book. It wasn't until I looked at the book and went, when the hell did he release that? Must have just went past me, that one, because that was fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks.
That one.
Yeah, I mean the 60-year thing was a big undertaking. It was really a whole year's worth of work to do 60. The idea was I would do 60 paintings to celebrate 60 years of Bond. It wasn't necessarily one painting per year. It was just wherever the wind took me, so long as all the films were covered. But 60 paintings is, for some reason, I fucking sorry, excuse my language. For some reason I thought like that's really doable. And then about 30, I was like, oh man, you're only at the halfway point here. This is like gonna take you forever. But it's sort of, luckily, the working in watercolors and ink in the way that I do it is quite sketchy. I'm not like painting big masterpiece paintings. A lot of them are like executed in an evening. But it's kind of when you factor in, like, okay, so I see my girlfriend on these 3 days, and then I work 5 days a week. And then I play in bands and stuff, do whole music thing as well. So there's not actually that much time.
Yeah, you're kind of non-stop.
It kind of turned into, that's the kind of the way I like to be.
Quite right, yeah.
At least nowadays, that's sort of how I like to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for the year 2021 was like any spare moment I got, any free evening was a painting evening.
Yeah, because there was a bit in the book where there was a part where it's interesting, where there was almost like a, so not in a bad way to say this, but there was almost like the good part of the pandemic, where you say in the book there was a lot of time you were in your room and you were just going at it.
Exactly. Yeah. Painting, that is.
Yeah. Because also I was trying to look into the book, because also in the book it also says you're a big music fan. Music's probably
Yes.
your number one passion. Yeah, I would say. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm reading too much into your work, but is there music elements in your art? Because it looks very like sound waves, the way it's portrayed, if you get what I mean.
I wouldn't say that is necessarily a huge influence in that sense. The only thing that I can kind of relate between the two, other than painting musical things like Cara with her cello and stuff like that, it's like appealing to me as a musician. But like I kind of come from the sort of punk, hardcore, metal side of music, where a lot of things are imperfect and rough around the edges, and like that's what's good about them. So I've always had a kind of like mindset of imperfection is kind of all right. So that it kind of filters through to art, and you go through this big phase where you're learning to paint, where you're like you're struggling with it, and it's hard to remember that you're not ever going to be the best at this. It's more important to be doing it your way. So when you come out of that phase, which is just a natural phase to go through when you want to be better at something than you currently are at it, when you come out the other end, you can sort of learn that the way you do things is the best way to do it, because it's unique to you. So the only way I can kind of say that the music that I like has inspired that is sort of because all the music I like is sort of underground, or it's punk stuff, or it's metal stuff that is rough around the edges, and that is a big element as to why I like it. It's not overproduced, pristine music. So that's
I think people
helps me in my mindset, I guess.
Yeah. I think people respect that when they do see someone's clear vision in something so unique and different. I think people respect that more, that you are bringing something so different to the table into the Bond community.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do. And I look at a lot of other artists who do stuff, and every time I see their post, I go, man, how great would it be if you could do that? But then you kind of go, well, that's just being a fan of somebody else's work. You don't necessarily spin it around on yourself, and there's a whole process of learning not to look at what other people are doing and be like, I wish I was doing that, which is not usually something that I've ever worried about. But in art, it can kind of get that way, because it's a difficult thing, like I churned out 60 paintings that year, but it wasn't easy. There's just as many ones that went in the bin as went out. The first draft was never quite right. So like a lot of the ones that you see, there's a bit in the book where I mention it, a lot of the paintings that you will see in the book are actually the second version of that painting. So there's a lot of process you have to go through, where you're accepting of the fact that the first time you paint something, it's probably not going to be as good as you can make it, so you do it again. But then I guess there's other ones that come out first time and there's imperfections to it, and you go, but I like that. Like there's the one that I call Figs in Corfu, which is the one of Bond and Melina walking down the street in
Very
Corfu,
nice.
and they're eating the fig that the guy says. I really didn't like that one when I first painted it, because like all the perspective of the buildings is wrong, and it's like all the inks like looks very messy. And then I sort of went back to it a week later when I had in my mind, I'm going to try and paint that one again, but better. And I looked at it with fresh eyes a few days later, and I was like, I really like that. And now it's like one of my favorite ones, because it is that kind of authentic, completely untouched.
It really
first
pops that one.
version
It's yeah.
sort of happens, and you can go into all the details, but
Do you find sometimes you're a bit hard on yourself on your own work in that way, or
nah,
nah?
honestly,
Yeah.
nah, not really. And I've never been that kind of
Mm.
person. I'm quite a free spirit, and I'm not. I'm not overly self-critical. It's just certain phases that you go through as an artist where you, especially when you start. The time I felt it the most was when I first started the channel, and then all of a sudden you've got to show people your work. I don't care less about
Oh no.
sitting down. I think, yeah, I don't really care less about the fact that I've painted something and I don't like it enough to keep it, so it goes in the bin. That's all part of the process. That's fine. But when you then have to admit you like something enough to maybe share it online, you open it up to critique. And that's, generally speaking, critique's not something that actually happens a lot on
Yeah.
my social media. I'm not like, I think it's very obvious that it's passionate fan art more than it is fine art. It's not, I'm not opening the door to reviews and criticism, or I like this one, but I don't like that one.
Yeah.
It all comes from a place of like, well, I only painted this because I love James Bond.
Well,
And I only created the channel because I love James Bond. So.
Yeah. Because the amount of comments I've seen is the amount of people that are clearly love your work, and they always leave nice comments. There's very rare I see anything bad or horrible.
No, I mean it's very. There's nothing that anyone ever says that.
Yeah.
And even if they do on those very rare occasions where someone was like, "Oh, your drawings look like a kid did them," and I was kind of like,
Oh,
"Cool."
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like, well, yeah, my style is sketchy and like
Yeah.
and there's a lot of inspiration in my work that comes from like illustrators that illustrated kids' books that I read when I was little. That's like the nature of watercolor and ink. It just looks a bit illustrative, and it's like it doesn't matter because I didn't paint it for you to review it. I painted
Yeah.
it
Of course. Yeah.
because I love that scene and I enjoy the process of doing it. So I'm not self-critical, and I don't really take any criticism that I do get too hard. But it's not like, generally I see the Bond community as a very safe space, apart from
Oh yeah.
the odd
Yeah.
occasion where something kicks off.
Yeah.
My experience of it has been extremely positive, and a lot of the comments people say to me about my art is about the James Bond related part of it, as opposed to critiquing the artwork itself. So 9 times out of 10, if I post something from Dr. No, people will say, I love that scene because Sean Connery did this, or I love that scene because the way Ursula Andress said this, or she looks like this, or this person acted this way. So like most of the feedback I get is Bond related as opposed to art related, and that's kind of the way I like it, because it is a Bond centric channel in more ways than it is an art centric channel, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, because
that's just kind of my thing.
Yeah. Because especially, I would say the Bond community is one of the best, I think, generally going, because I'm we're both fans of Doctor Who, and and that community is interesting, and Star Wars is a bit funny, and Marvel as well, but Bond is just, everyone just seems to, like, I've had so many folk, and I'm sure you have, all over the world, just talking to each other, just being nice and just sharing the love. It's
I mean, really, like this whole thing that I do was a reason for me to indulge in the online community more. I knew that I liked art and I could paint and was painting anyway. It was kind of like, well, maybe that could be what I do for this community. But first and foremost, it was about getting into that community. Like that was the reason why it's here. It's not the other way around, where I'm kind of, I mean, it was at that point where I was painting and I wasn't fully feeling it. So it's kind of like, well, how do you inspire yourself to paint more or paint better? Why not pluck this thing that you love with all your heart and collide them? It's like a super collider. And for me personally, it worked, but Bond in many ways was the more important part there when I created a channel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we could definitely we see that from obviously your Instagrams. So next thing I want to talk about is your discovery into the Bond franchise. When that first time you really discovered Bond and loving it. Now, if you've read the book, we kind of know what this is, but obviously for viewers, I love you're smiling because I know I know what the answer is this coming year. But so yeah, your discovery into Bond.
I also quite like telling the story really because it's quite a fun one because I know the specific day, which I posted on Twitter recently saying like, who knows the specific day where they first saw James Bond, and nobody can remember. They could maybe remember the year, or they could remember, well, I went to see this film in the cinema, which means it was probably in this span of 6 weeks or whatever it was. But there's not many people that replied to me and said, I know to the day, the first day. And the reason I know that also that was the first day I seen James Bond was that the week before at school. So this is 2002.
Oh God!
I was born. I was born 93, so I was like 9 or thereabouts.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I've been 9. So, I had went to school, and at the end of the day, you get your 10 minutes to play or whatever. And my best friend at the time, Fraser, had this little ID card, and it was James Bond, and it was a picture of Pierce Brosnan. But at the time, I didn't know that. But in retrospect, I worked it out. And he was like manning the play area, almost like a bouncer. And because he had this ID card, and he was like demanding a password to get in. It's some silly thing. And obviously, me being his best friend, I was like, who's that? And he was like, all taken aback, like, well, you don't know who James Bond is? As if it was like the most alien thing he'd ever heard. And he'd obviously been introduced to it long before I had. And I was like, no idea. And just seeing his excitement about it made me go home and sort of say to mum and dad, well, who's James Bond? Because like my best pal loves him and I want to love him too, because my best pal needs to think that I'm cool, like, because I think he's cool. And I know that this James Bond guy's cool because he's told me he's cool. So I was kind of like all taken aback. And I think he'd said to me, there's a film out and you should go and see it or something. So anyway, I went home to my dad and said, who's James Bond? Can we go and see this movie? So he took me to see Die Another Day, obviously 2002. Say what you will about the movie, but when you're 9 and you're when you're 9, I came out and it had changed my life. That film changed my life. Like everything I do now with the whole Bond thing, that is the starting point. Maybe the movie now is quite low in my rankings, but when you're 9, like what's not to love about?
Has that changed over the years? Yeah, has it went down?
Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's pretty low in the rankings. In the sentimental, in terms of sentimental value, it's like
of course, really
high.
It's probably the perfect movie for a kid to first watch a Bond movie. Like Casino might be a bit dark and a bit too serious.
Absolutely.
Die Another Day. Yeah, it's
Die Another Day when you're 9, man.
Yeah,
I just came out of it thinking, wow, that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so perfect timing for me with the tone of the films that were out at the time. Because if I had went and seen, License to Kill, if this was all going down in 89, I'd maybe be thinking.
Well, first of all, you probably wouldn't be allowed in.
Of course,
because that was I can't remember. Was it a 15 in the UK? I remember in America it was also deemed R-rated, but I think it
probably was.
Yeah, I think it was a 15 over here. But nowadays I don't think cinemas don't care if kids are going into.
No. I think Die Another Day was a 12A. Which was like you can watch it if you're under 12 if you're accompanied by an adult who says it's okay. I don't know if 12A still exists as a certificate.
It does seem to. Is it just because of the torture scene? Maybe that was a bit deemed. All that stuff. I don't know. Maybe
Halle Berry scene where she's like,
oh god, yes, because it's a full-on sex scene in that one, isn't
it? Yeah. I do remember that as a 9-year-old. For some reason,
that's weird. It's weird that one, isn't it?
So yeah, it was kind of like I was introduced by my friend telling me that it was cool, and me as a 9-year-old being like, well, I want to be cool, so I'll go and do it. And I think in hindsight, looking at how much he likes James Bond, is like I overtook him pretty quick.
Does he still like Bond? Or
I've not actually spoken to him for a very long time. But
right.
He does. He actually like there was a time maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We went to different high schools, so by the time we were 12, our paths
You
crossed.
split up.
That's like
Yeah.
15, 16, 17, 18 years
Yeah.
ago now. But he messaged me some maybe 5 years ago where I hadn't spoke to him for about at least 10 years.
Wow. Right.
And he just sort of popped up in my Facebook messages, and I was like, "Oh, that's Fraser. I wonder if he's just getting in touch to say hey."
Yeah.
I don't think he even said hello. He just said, "Hey man, I'm watching Moonraker. And do you remember Dolly having braces?
Oh.
Because I'm flipping out right now. Because I swear when I was little, she had braces."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, man, this is an amazing message to greet me with after all this time. I was like, I know that you're still loving it.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. And I was like, yeah, I remember having braces. Of course I do.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does.
Yeah, it seems to be the good example of the Mandela effect, doesn't it? Where you seem to think, yeah, I know, yeah, it wasn't. I think it wasn't until the Blu-ray people were like, no, it's she's got, because people jumped to the fact that Jaws had metal teeth. Then obviously, well, maybe she. I think that was also a bit kind of in play, but
it's weird because it did happen to me. Like I did remember her having braces, and I'm kind of odd, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so weird. I remember, like, see, the earliest moment I had with Bond was more in the Craig era. I do remember a little bit of Pierce, but I remember Casino Royale, and the reason why I remember Casino so much was because at school, one of my teachers was a huge Bond fan. And I remember I kind of saw it, and I spoke to him. I was like, "Oh, what did you think?" His first comment, which has been so many Bond fans ones, "Yeah, it was all right. Didn't have the gun barrel at the start." Like that was,
that's it, of course.
Yeah, it just was not
be
like
all and end all. Yeah.
When Quantum came out, it was the same comment. It was like, "It's all right. Didn't no gun barrel though. What's that? Was that the end?"
It's amazing how important that aspect is.
Weird.
Because I've went through the whole phase of when that really grinded my gears. I'm kind of not. I'm not fussy now, but like I was certainly at the time kind of like, but where is it?
No, it's so true. Because I'm not gonna lie. See Spectre, No Time to Die. When that gun barrel sequence comes up, it does pump you up. You do get, oh right, okay. It's like the Star Wars opening crawl. It's that.
Yeah.
It's kind of telling you, oh yeah, the movie's starting.
I remember the whole thing, Skyfall, where it opens up and the light shining on his face in the alley, and I think I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if you even know, Sam Mendes saying that the way the opening shot is just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
With the gun barrel.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've seen someone edit it together, and I was like, but that looks great. Like,
because it's centered in the shot, center, so it would have. You could have had it kind of nice.
Swoops around the corner, and I'm kind of like, wouldn't that have been absolutely?
Yeah.
Not only would it have worked, would it have maybe been absolutely perfect?
I would have. Because I do remember it was a case of it was something like he says the exact same movement he does is basically the same again. He's walking down and he's lifting his gun up. It's kind of, you're just getting the same thing. But I don't know. When you first watch it, you're like, oh, they've done it a third time. But the same
kind of odd thing to say about a franchise that was it's the third movie at the time. And you're kind of like, we like seeing the same thing.
But that's just the kind of pickiness that we have inside us. But at the same time, like Skyfall, we appreciate. Oh wait, that was actually a really nicely done shot, though. So I'm perfectly.
I've got nothing bad to say about it. And I love the opening shot of Quantum as well. I think that's I also think it would have worked just as well with the gun barrel.
I have actually seen, I think it was on YouTube, I did see someone someone did edit, and I can understand what they were going with, putting it at the end, feeling this is now Bond. I do get what they're kind of going with, but at the same time, we just want to see this guy walk along.
It's like, listen, we're suckers for the formula.
Yeah.
Please just hit me over the head with the formula.
That's it. And I must say, I did actually really like, because it was something unique and different, was because only we got it in the UK, was how in No Time to Die was the Universal logo, and it turned white and then it moved. I was like, I remember sitting watching that going, oh, I was like looking about going, anyone else see?
I mean, a lot of people didn't like that though.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Or at least the end of the gun barrel where it just fades to white as opposed to disappearing.
Because they were going for
that. I thought that was pretty cool.
I like that they were setting up that you know, they're kind of spoiling it, telling you he's going to die at the end of this movie. That he's
a
off.
little bit, yeah.
There's a bit of spoiler alert if you've not seen No Time to Die. It's been out for a wee bit now. But yeah, it's weird how we're kind of like that. Next up, I want to kind of talk about. We've kind of talked about it, but
sorry, I'm so bad for meandering through.
Oh no, I love it.
Into something else.
I love it. Honestly, you're perfectly fine.
So bad for that.
You're all good. But something interesting I got from the book, which I feel kind of is different to most to all really Bond fans, is you did not find Bond through family. Most Bond fans are like, oh yeah, it's my dad. He had the VHS tapes and we watched through them. But you've kind of already mentioned them. It was actually through your friend. So it was like your parents were just never. You know,
no, not at all. The only person, to my knowledge, I know who was into James Bond was my older cousin James, because when I was going through that phase of trying to discover all the films as a young guy who was sourcing them from charity shops and from Tesco and whatever it was at the time, HMV or whatever, with pocket money and stuff like that. I know that he had some at his house, because when I went there, we would watch them. So to my knowledge, he's the only person who actually gives even the faintest shit about James Bond.
Yeah.
Not bothered at all. Not even, to the point where when my friend Fraser had said to me, "Oh, you don't know who James Bond is?" Truly, no idea. I've not heard of it. I've not seen part of this film.
Yeah.
No one said, "Oh, you should watch a Bond film because you're old enough to enjoy a Bond film now." My dad doesn't like James. Well, he doesn't dislike James Bond. Just doesn't actually care about James Bond at all.
Yeah.
Nor did my mum. Nor did my big brother. So it was literally just completely, just a non-entity at all in my household. Until that moment. So.
Oh, I know for a fact my dad wishes he never showed me a Bond movie. I think he regretted that.
Of course, what makes you wonder, when you're a dad and you kind of, if you do become a dad, and I've been probably waiting a good few years for them to get to the age where I can indoctrinate you as a Bond fan now.
yeah.
And then they just overtake you by miles, and they thought, oh, what have I created here?
Oh yeah, because my dad's a good example. He just watches the movies. That's kind of it. I love watching the behind the scenes and all. He doesn't really care about watching behind the scenes. I try and get to watch. It was remember the kind of Daniel Craig kind of last one they did. I think it was on Apple. I think it was that one. The Being James Bond. And I was like, oh, it's really good. It's only about an hour, so it's it's not too long. No, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's it.
It's gone, it's just not for kids, and that's fine. We all have our own different. I don't push that on them. Do you know what I mean? It's just more. That's just more what I'm into. But another thing I found quite interesting, you said in the book, is you feel. Well, you more maybe felt like an outsider of the Bond community. Do you still feel like that, or do you feel a bit better now?
No, I wouldn't say I feel like that now, and I feel like the feeling that I had early doors where I came into the community in an online sense, that was probably based on a lack of knowledge of how wide the community was, because a lot of the big channels, at least at the time, were very sartorial or very luxury brands, and it's not that I dislike those channels. In fact, they were the ones that sucked me in to wanting to start my own. But that was all. Again, it's only because it's James Bond that I ever actually really cared. I don't care what shirt somebody wears, and I don't care what shoes somebody wears, or what watch they wear, or anything like that. I'm wearing like I'm in Scotland and it's cold, and I'm wearing my cap indoors. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm not a fashion guy.
That's you.
At all.
Yeah, but that's you though. It's who you are. It's
and I don't drink at all. So anyone who's talking about what drink they're having on a Friday or Saturday or whatever Bond related, in that, not something that I ever do. I don't drive, so I have a knowledge of cars, or just feel like almost everything that James Bond is kind of what I'm not.
Yeah,
and a lot of what the community enjoys doing is being like Bond. That to a lot of people is a really important aspect of how they celebrate it.
Mhm.
And that's amazing for them, but it's not for
Yeah,
me.
it's not for you. Yeah.
So when I first joined the community and realized how much of it was that, or at the time seemed like how much of it was that to me, until I found other people who do their own very niche bits. But everyone will, when everyone comes together, there's someone doing everything. But at the point where I joined the community, my feed was very much centric to the big Bond luxury kind of thing that was popping off at the time of the pandemic when I jumped in, and that was more algorithm than anything. Now that I can see it in hindsight, it wasn't because that's actually all the community was or is. But I certainly felt like, oh wow, I'm not that at all. I'm actually just some scruffy geezer from Scotland who likes to paint. And I've sort of found all kinds of people who do their own little niche and all support one another. So the moment I
Oh yeah,
realized
yeah.
that it was the community was actually very supportive of anything, I kind of realized that it's not that. But yeah, certainly felt at the start like, oh wow, maybe is this actually for me now that I've made my channel? Is this actually my place? Because I'm not anything like a lot of this. But then I sort of like persisted with it, and I was like, no, these are actually my people. If someone can make me watch an hour-long video about a Tom Ford suit, and I found myself actually watching it like this,
Oh yeah, yeah.
then these are my people, because I don't care
Mhm.
about suits one little bit.
No, yeah.
Here I am, I've watched an hour-long video about how Daniel Craig wore it in this scene, and I'm kind of like, oh, this is amazing. So, it turns out I've learned a lot of things about all aspects of
Oh
life
yeah,
because
yeah.
of the Bond community that I wouldn't have described as my interests
Mhm.
beforehand. Again, it's the whole sort of, if it wasn't for the Bond element, I wouldn't be doing this. And that can kind of be said for tons of things in my life, I think.
Of course, yeah.
It all comes back to Bond one way or another, which is kind of how I know how important it is to me as a franchise, I
Of
guess.
course, yeah. But you say, oh, scruffy and all that, but hey, you cleaned up pretty damn well at that Raw premiere,
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm one of these people that like, I'm so not used to dressing well that like on these occasions I feel like I am like top of the world, because I'm like, wow, I'm wearing my tux, or oh, I'm wearing my kilt, I'm wearing my tartan trousers, whatever it is. They only ever come out when there's like an occasion to wear them, and like it feels to me like a lot. It feels almost like cosplay to me, because I'm not the kind of guy who will ever wear a suit. I don't have a job that requires me to wear a suit or anything. So like the only time that tux ever gets worn is at a Bond event, which is kind of why it feels like cosplay to me, because again, it's only James Bond that would ever force me into wearing a tux. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm just not the kind of guy that dresses apart from for these very specific events.
A part of me would have loved it if you did turned up in your hoodie and the hat, just like, you're
That'd
right.
be amazing, man. I know.
I would have
That's like
respected that
in my
so
heart what I would have been more comfortable
yeah.
doing. But don't get me wrong, like I like the act of dressing up because it still
Oh, yeah.
feels very novelty to me. So like when I'm getting ready in the hotel to go to the premiere and I'm doing all Dicky Bow up, I'm kind of like, wow, this is something really different
Yeah.
from your day to day life, which
Of
just
course.
all adds to the sort of expanse of brilliance that is whatever the event is that you're going to. So it's not that I don't like doing it. It's just I never really do it for anything else ever.
Yeah.
But on the day, I'm actually like really enjoying wearing the tux, because I'm like, wow, this is like something totally different for you that makes you feel different and you
Of
look
course,
different.
yeah. And it makes it feel more a special event, which that was.
Absolutely, yeah,
That
yeah,
was
of
a big
course,
event that happened.
yeah. The premiere, man, was just a
Yeah,
very
how was that
stressful
experience? Yeah, how was that?
for me. For me personally, quite stressful.
Yeah.
Because I had to rush down and not allow myself much time. I had to sort out the clothes that I was wearing, which, as someone who doesn't own a wardrobe of suitable clothing, it's like you have to source the stuff and hire it and pay for the hire and all this and that. Then you get down there and it was like still very much COVID testing times.
Of course, yeah.
Uh, so it was kind of like, man, imagine you got COVID on the day of the premiere. How gutted you would be. Would
Yeah.
you would you lie? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would you like all my whole moral compass was like out the window,
Yeah, yeah.
because I was kind of like, see, if I get COVID the day before the premiere, I should not go in there
Mm-hmm,
with
mm-hmm.
those thousands of people in a very, you know, close expanse.
Yeah.
Imagine you didn't go to the premiere. So it was like that was a whole big sort of
Especially when
stress.
you've got that ticket,
For
you're
me,
right there.
yeah, of course, man. And then obviously on the red carpet, I'm kind of like so overwhelmed, and I'm meeting so many people that I know online who I'd never met before. So it becomes a whole big social event of meeting people and kind of
Mm-hmm.
introducing yourself. You sort of look over and like there's Daniel Craig walking past, and you're just like my mind was just whirring the whole time. It was kind of only the day after that I really appreciated how good it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also in the venue, the Royal Albert Hall itself is a brilliant venue, but it's not cinema. It's not comfy in the way a cinema is, especially when you're
Yeah.
dressed to the nines in a kilt. You know, I was
Because I remember I watched
bothering.
I remember I watched a video. I think it was Calvin Dyson kind of talked about it, and he said, "You like the sound's not great in there. It's not."
It's just not a cinema. It's
Yeah,
not like
yeah, yeah.
it wasn't amazing. It sounds like I'm having a big
Mhm.
rant about the
No, no,
premiere.
yeah, no,
It
no.
was like it was amazing. It
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
best. But like, you know, it's not a cinema, and
Mhm,
it's the
mhm.
seats are not designed for you to slump back in them and enjoy a movie. The you're dressed to the nines, and I was up in the rafters, you know, and all
All
the
right,
heat
right,
in the
right.
rooms
Yeah, I just
rising. So
traveling
you're
up.
like kind
Yeah,
of sitting going like, "Oh, I wish I could just unbutton this, I'm sure." Um, and
but I
then
look so good.
and then and then the movie started, and the whole day before it had been such a rush and
Mm.
like of adrenaline of like how exciting it was, and you're meeting these people, and then you're seeing these people from the cast, and you're seeing Barbara Broccoli walk by and all this and that, and it's like you sit down in your seat and you go, "Oh man, we're actually getting like a new Bond film right now." Kind of forget that at least I had forgotten for the whole day that I was actually just there to watch a new Bond film. Oh wow, like, in 2 minutes' time it's going to start, and I'm just going to get a whole new film. And I loved No Time to Die and still do,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I've got a lot. Yeah, yeah. I've got a lot of love for it.
Bond does die at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah, yeah.
So even in my head, where I'm like, well, at the end of today, we're all going to go and have some drinks and enjoy this and that, and have a big party, kind of wasn't that, because Bond dies at the end, and
Mhm.
that is such a huge talking point that it just took over proceedings
Yeah,
for
of
the whole
course.
night.
Yeah.
So we went to the casino, and you kind of walked in, and it was almost like somebody's wake at a funeral,
Oh,
as
jeez.
opposed to someone's party after
Yeah,
a
like a
wedding.
celebration. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was a lot of sharing of opinions, good and bad, worries, shock, uh, not necessarily celebration of a new Bond film. So it was a very
Mm-hmm.
odd. It was such a peculiar day in my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was so beyond anything I normally do. Good and surprising and stressful, but good stressful. Entirely worth it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
it's like it's probably my favorite day, really, if I was to think of all my days.
I still remember when it was the premium was coming up. Everyone still felt like, is this going to get pushed back again? Like,
Yes, yeah, of
it's
course, yeah, that's
yeah.
another
It was
element
there
to
was
take
still a
account.
feeling of that.
It was a stressful and very busy and tiring day, and an emotional day,
Of
good and
course,
bad.
yeah.
You know, sort of like the pinnacle of my Bond fandom thus far,
Hmm.
but also the emotional blow of Bond dying, which like did have an emotional effect on me from like
Yeah.
a cinematic point of view. Just like going to bed that night thinking, what day that was. Like what a day that was. I just
Yeah.
meant like what a day that was. And the next day just being like, man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But at the time, like there was so many things going on at the same time that it's
Hmm.
just like, okay, I'm just gonna roll with this, and today's gonna be a blur, but man, it's gonna be a good one. And so yeah, it was great. It was great. It was just an unusual,
Crazy. Yeah.
peculiar, yeah, crazy day.
Yeah. Did you
Just a
travel
crazy day.
back to Edinburgh the day after, or did you manage to see a bit of London?
I'm pretty certain I just went back the next day. Yeah,
Oh,
just like
jeez. Oh,
we just totally
yeah.
hosted. I'm kind of used to doing that. I mean, like
Oh,
I've
right, right.
done like a lot of trips down to London for Bond related things,
Hmm.
just sort of there and back. So it's kind of that didn't concern me. And when you know you're going at the premiere, you're like, I'll sit on a train for however long it takes to get
That's
me
it.
there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Of
not
course.
bothered at all. But yeah, it's a tiring thing to do because it's sort of kind of close, but it's just far enough away to be you've got to make a decent set of travel arrangements
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But that I mean, the whole year from No Time to Die into 2022, the 60-year celebrations, my mentality was like, you're going to have to nip down to London a fair few times this year. Just admit to yourself you're going to do it, because you're not going to sit at home and be happy knowing that you're not there at like the concert and the last Cue the Music show and all this stuff. It's just like, at the start of 2022, I was like, just whatever they announce in London, I'm just going to go to.
Quite, yeah.
My work are going to have to deal with it. I'm going to have to deal with it. This is my life now.
Yeah.
I love it so much. You're going to be annoyed at yourself if you don't go. So yeah, it was just a crazy day, but it's really just one of the few crazy days that I had over that sort of time.
I know I need to pull my finger out and actually go to these type, because I did really, I was gutted I didn't do the Cue the Music. I should have went to I'm pretty sure that when I did go, because that did sell out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure the last time I did go, and it was like, oh, it was sold out, and I was quite glad. I was like, you're an idiot, Johnny.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not so much that it makes you an idiot. It's just kind of like I went to one event, and now I go to a lot of events because you sort of discover that they are worth it.
Oh yeah.
But then there's so many factors that come into play. Like, I'm kind of fortunate that I get along with my bosses to the point where I can just take this little bit of time off whenever I want to, and I'll make it up to you
later.
That's good.
Right.
So there's arrangements there that work, and there's my ability to get a train from where I live very easily directly to London. That not so bad to do, and the cost of that train isn't horrific based on my income. There's so many factors that I kind of feel in a very fortunate position where I was able to go to as many things as I went to.
Yeah.
In the year. So it's not like you're an idiot for not going. At the same time, like, I would have said you should have went because it was amazing.
Yeah.
But of course, that's just kind of how it is. But
the annoying thing where I live is like I have to travel up to then go back down. It's like one of them. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them scenarios, because the closest big city for me is Glasgow. So getting up there, I'm pretty sure Glasgow does trains to London. Pretty sure. Yeah. Pretty sure. So so it's like a 15-minute train journey for me. When they're on.
Kind of but at Waverley and Edinburgh Waverley train station in like 15 minutes if I want to be.
It's a lovely station.
Maybe a little longer, because I've got a really good train line from mine to Waverley. It's a convenient journey, and it's a journey I like doing. I like traveling by train. That's probably my favorite way to travel. So I don't take much convincing to get on that train, because I like the journey. So there's a lot of things about it that I like doing, and I quite like traveling alone, which is usually how I get to these places. I'm maybe meeting people there, but the excursion itself is like solo travel, which is like something that I quite enjoy doing. So it's,
of course,
there's a lot of elements to it that really suit me that perhaps don't suit others, or like, as you say, something similar, like the geography of where you live. Makes it so much more difficult.
I live in a very boring, quiet town, and do you know what I mean? It's like where kind of nothing happens really.
Like, so long as you're not judging the severity of someone's fandom based on how active they are at these kind of things. Some people, they maybe love James Bond, but they simply don't want to go. It's not their kind of event. Or they don't have the finances to go, or they're not willing to pay however much it is to go, even if they would love to go. There's so many things about it.
Because like I remember, especially with the royal premiere, especially at that point, like I was during lockdowns, I was near enough a hermit. Like I was literally just in my house going to work, and I would come back home, and that was kind of I did get a little bit nervous, I would say. And it took me a little bit to to get myself confident again and get back out. And I think hopefully now I've definitely now I'd say I'm a bit better than I was.
And I was certainly intimidated from the social point of view of going down and meeting people that I had but never met in person. Like, that's something that I personally do find nerve-wracking. I wouldn't say I'm an antisocial person, but I am someone who gets nervous about that kind of thing, and I'm kind of like, well, I hope it's all goes all right. And
of course,
it's certainly something that goes through my my head. And
yeah, yeah.
once you know one person there and they're going the next time, all of a sudden it's a safe space
Yes.
for you
Ah,
because
yeah,
you've made
yeah.
that personal connection with
Of
someone.
course.
So it gets easier as it goes on. So it takes less and less convincing every time to go to the next thing. Apart from your finances just sort of going.
Oh, definitely, man, definitely.
It's just like, again, it's like 2022 is just like, you're going to go to these things and you're going to love it and don't worry about anything else.
Quite
That's going to be my mentality.
And we will continue that interview in a wee bit. So next up is a toy review, and it's going to be about Doctor Who. There's a new set that's came out. 2022 was quite a weird year for the Doctor Who figures, but could this new set be the gleaming hope for Doctor Who sets in 2023? Let's go see. It's fair to say that 2022 was an interesting year from character. From the start of the year, we had the great online exclusive 3-pack Silurian set, and it felt like such a great hope that 2022 was going to be a great year. And then we got the end of that said year, where we got a redo of the fan now named Disco Rose, and then also a 3-pack David Tennant set. It was a very weird way it ended. But is this set possibly a good sign of great things to come for 2023 from character? Let's find out. So today I'm going to review this set. It is, to be precise, the Regeneration set 2-figure collection set here. And I'm going to say right now, it is very nice. I know there was some kind of complaints of the boxing, in which that's actually the first thing I want to talk about. Now, you could make an argument that the box is very simple and plain, but I think it kind of works. And the first thing I look at this, I just think, I want to see what it looks like on the normal range, and I think that's going to be quite an interesting kind of way of design. I want to see what it looks like. So at the front, you've got the kind of new logo that they've got with the kind of Regeneration set at the bottom, and it's also got the same in the back. At the side, it's also got the Doctor Who logo Regeneration set with the kind of different style of Doctor Who logo that they've got for this. I know that's not been a very kind of well-received version of the logo. I think it looks fine, but yes, the diamond logo I think is really nice. But I think it's it's almost such an easy way to say, oh, this isn't, you know, it's simplistic, but I think it works for its favour. Now, kind of opening up in the actual box, on the left side you do have, there's a bit of description of the 13th Doctor and the 14th Doctor. I'm not going to read that because I don't want to ramble on too much here, but so yeah, it's kind of saying it's an online exclusive, such and such. And then on the right side, it also very nicely kind of displays the two Doctors, Jodie and David, very well, nicely in there. At the top left it says, from the power of the Doctor, and it kind of just says, obviously, it's 5.5 inches and 14 centimetres in scale, the figures, so I think it's very nice. There's not really much talk about the box, but, you know, there will be people that will kind of moan that, oh, that is very simplistic, as it says, but I think it generally works, and I'm very much looking forward to what it's going to look like when it's on its just normal production line. I think it'll be quite an interesting look. Now let's talk about the actual figures, shall we? Now obviously this is a 2-pack, so you get 2 sets. Accessories wise, there isn't much, I'm going to say it right now. The only thing you really get is Jodie's sonic screwdriver, which if you've had her before, you've already got. I know this scene, I think it's from a comic book that David Tennant does also have. Still uses the Jodie's sonic screwdriver, but it seems to have blue instead of the orange that she has. So they could have maybe done something different there, but you know, they just decided we'll just stick to the figure, and that is fair. So yes, so we've got the 2 sets here, and I think they look great, if I'm honest. So talking quickly, I think we'll talk about the Jodie one first. I think this is honestly her best that there's been. I can actually quickly just grab it now, because my previous favourite one was obviously what was this? The one from Flux. I can't remember which episode it was called, but it was a very nice costume. I really liked it. It was quite simple, and I thought it looked fantastic personally. But here, like, it's such a great design. Of obviously the whole point of this costume was it's meant to be a little bit of a mix of all the Doctor's costumes here. So if I remember rightly, it's the 7th Doctor's jumper, 10th Doctor's tie, 4th Doctor's scarf, 5th Doctor's celery, I think it's the 11th Doctor's boots, 12th Doctor's trousers, possibly, or maybe the second Doctor's trousers, because I think it's maybe the shirt of the 12th Doctor, hence why it's kind of the longer sleeves there. But it's really nice. So kind of quickly, I'm not going to go too deep into articulations. I've already kind of had a wee little play about with it, basically. I'm saying it right now, be careful with the scarf because it doesn't go fully open, and I've got a feeling in time that could easily quite rip off. So maybe just be careful. With that, I think you could maybe have an issue. There is no articulation in the shoulders. You cannot lift them up, unlike another one that we're going to talk about here. The arms move really nicely. I think everything is okay. Hands are a bit stiff. I think that's naturally because of, obviously, with the longer sleeves it has from the shirt. So I think that's just naturally it's going to be like that. And there's nothing really you're getting movement from the inside. But that's fine though. I don't really have a problem. I know some folk might complain about the concept of articulation, but that doesn't really bother me. Especially, I don't know why with Doctor Who figures. I always think they just look nicer, just kind of standing there. I don't really see many people try and pose them or anything. I don't think they need to be like that. I think it just works perfectly fine like that. So I'm going to place her there, and hopefully it doesn't fall. Hopefully it doesn't fall. It's going to fall. It's gonna. So next up, let's quickly talk about the David Tennant figure. So this one comes with 0 accessories. There is nothing here. So this is very much a brand new figure. They even did a new David Tennant head sculpt. I know there's been some complaints on this head sculpt, like apparently that it doesn't really look like David Tennant. In hand, I think it looks fine. I'm not kind of crazy about it, to be honest, but the overall design of it, I think the coat is okay. I'm not crazy about the shoulders. I remember in the photos, I think it's a bit too heavy up. It looks a bit too kind of much there. I'm not crazy about that, if I'm honest, but I think the colours look really nice. I think they really kind of pop. There's a little bit more, I think, with the coat and the kind of I think it's meant to be kind of like that kind of burgundy tartan that he kind of wears underneath for this Doctor. I think it all looks really quite nice indeed. Articulations, there's a big difference with this one, articulation, if I can even say the word. The big difference with this one, unlike that one, is the shoulders do actually move, which there was a long rumour that there was a prototype of a David Tennant that they were going to do such thing, but it never got released. Did happen with, I don't think I've got it in hand quickly, but the Tuxedo David Tennant, which they did release, does have that said articulation in the shoulders. But overall, again, it's not the craziest. There's a little bit of movement in the kind of waist there, but with these kind of, with the long coats, you're not really going to find much kind of movement with that sort of stuff there. But it's very nice. As I said, there's no articulation. There's a bit of kind of different hair. I know it is a new head sculpt that they've done. Looks like there's a bit of greying in the sideburns as well. I never noticed that he was actually grey in the trailers. Maybe he is. Maybe I missed that. But yes, very nice indeed. So my overall kind of review, basically, in saying this, I think, and I don't want to jump too quickly, this gives good feelings of possibly what could be coming in 2023. I think character needs it, and I think there's going to be a good boom with Doctor Who, and I think it's going to hopefully collide together and really shine. And I think we could see some really interesting stuff. Last year was a bit of a disappointment. I won't lie, because I loved that Silurian set, and it was an online exclusive, very much like this. And I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be a good start. But it wasn't. And there was barely anything that got me excited again, really, over that year. But I think this is a good start. This is probably one of the best Jodie figures they've done. The likeness is, hers is better. David, a bit funny. But we've got a new Doctor here, even though it's really 10.5, let's be honest. But they both look fantastic. It's a lovely set. I love the box as well. I did get 2 because I thought it was a great set. So yes, to end this off, I think and I hope this set is signs of great things to come. Yes, very nice set overall. So let's get back to the second part of the interview. This part is going to be very much about a wee Bond discussion as well as some of your viewers' questions. So, pure and simply, enjoy.
Next up, I thought we could do a wee kind of actual Bond discussion of kind of certain elements and all that. So the first thing I was going to want to talk about, we're very similar in terms of we're both 90s kids, but do you consider Brosnan being your Bond? Or I remember very much from the book, and we'll kind of talk about it in a second, it was more the Craig era was more
Yeah, I
Maybe.
think I kind of want to say that Brosnan is my Bond. But if I'm being really honest to myself, he's not.
Yeah.
Daniel Craig is. Like, Brosnan was obviously the Bond that was in the first movie that I saw, so I'm very thankful for that. And his portrayal was obviously perfect for what I wanted at the time, even though I didn't know what I was watching really. Realistically, especially when you look back on it and you see Die Another Day kind of isolated as Brosnan's bad one amongst 3 ones that are considered quite good, if not really good. You know, I don't feel like I was a Brosnan. I didn't know about GoldenEye or watch it. I didn't know about Tomorrow Never Dies or The World's Not Enough or watch them until retrospectively after seeing Die Another Day. So I didn't experience his era. And I was also too young at the time when I saw Die Another Day, sort of like consider myself like a fan of a franchise now. It's just a movie that I loved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't until Casino Royale rolled round and I'd seen all the other Bond films in the 4-year gap where I was like, oh, wow, I love all of this.
Yeah.
And here's the new film. So here's like my first film as a true fan already. And that's when the fandom just like skyrocketed like this.
Yeah.
The Casino Royale was what kickstarted the obsession. Obviously, Die Another Day was the one that sort of laid the foundations for that. But I wasn't like living and breathing it until Daniel Craig. And obviously 2006, I was like 12 or whatever. And then No Time to Die, I'm like 28. So that's like my whole, I can't remember much before I was 12. All my conscious memories.
Yeah.
All my high school years and then all my working years and everything I've done in between. That's all. Daniel Craig was Bond for all of that. And I was a child.
Yeah.
Daniel Craig wasn't Bond.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to talk about, is how the Craig era affected your teenhood. That was kind of something you were talking about in your book, which again I felt quite interested, because I was like, yeah, I kind of get that feeling as well.
So I mean, like as I say, the Daniel Craig era has been there as long as I can remember anything that is worth remembering. Really, apart from like obviously I was a kid. I was just going through life like this. Like, oh, okay. It's only
I still am.
I mean, same. Don't get me wrong. It's not changed too much. You know, once you go to high school, when you're 12 years old, you start to learn a bit more about yourself and others and what you really like and dislike. And then you turn 18, and then you have to learn what it's like to be an adult and doing this and that, or you get your first girlfriend or whatever it is. Like all these life experience, valuable life experience that takes you into adulthood. And then throughout adulthood, like trying to be an adult, which is still something that I really don't enjoy doing. But you know, like that was all. Daniel Craig was Bond for all of that. So no matter what happened, it was like my love for Bond he was the figurehead in that whole thing. He was Bond at the time, even all these things that are not James Bond related at all. It's still like in the peripheral, Daniel Craig's presence as James Bond, and that's the thing that I love throughout all of this time. You know, every girlfriend I've had, it's like, we'll watch a Bond film because that's what I love. You go through that with all of them, you know, all your teens and whatever. So when James Bond's your thing, a lot of people speak to you about it because they know that they're in for a conversation with you. And Daniel Craig was Bond for all of that. So the thing that your average person who's not a huge Bond fan but knows a little bit about it is going to talk to you about Daniel Craig because he's Bond. So it was just like, I can't not say that Daniel Craig was my Bond, even though I kind of in my heart want it to be Brosnan because I feel like more of a Brosnan guy.
Yeah.
I feel more like a Brosnan guy, but he's not my Bond. That's just like
I remember when I was
not
younger.
how it is.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, Brosnan used to be quite high, but the problem I find with Brosnan, he is in between two extremely strong actors that played Bond, is with Dalton and Craig, giving very as I say, strong performances. And then Brosnan, who I think is fine in the role. He does. He says himself he did what was based on the script, so that he was given. He did what he could. And I do like when he does the cold stuff. I think he's actually really damn good. I think we all love that scene when he kills Electra King.
Absolutely.
I think that's a fantastic scene.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Brosnan as Bond. He's one of my favorites. I'm not even going to go into ranking them because they're actually like all at the top for me. I know that sounds like a cop out, but like
no, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah,
I've not got really a bad word to say about it. I love the tone of Brosnan's movies, and I love him in them. Like my most rewatched Bond films are probably like quite Brosnan centric. I find them very easy to just watch over and over and over again. And in the grand scheme, it kind of makes you realize, well, maybe they don't have quite as much substance, the Daniel Craig ones and the Timothy Dalton ones on either side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And not all Bond films need to have that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to sit down and watch No Time to Die, every 6 months. It's like I've set that aside for a while and then experience it again. Tomorrow Never Dies. I could probably wake up every Sunday morning and watch Tomorrow Never Dies. And every Sunday morning, I would just sit there eating cereal, absolutely loving it. Every single time. Every Sunday of the year.
It's interesting that you say with substance with Brosnan, but some do say that, GoldenEye onwards, there is a little bit they do try, though. Tomorrow Never Dies with the whole, how media is controlling a little bit more, and how World Is Not Enough with the whole, Electric King and her kind of stuff. There is, you could argue there is a little bit more. I think as time goes on, folk are noticing it. They're trying,
They experimented a lot. I find that everyone says that they experimented too much with the Daniel Craig. I don't actually think it's a problem with experimentation. I think it's a problem with they don't like how they experimented with it. Because it became more about family and love and these sort of like tangible, emotional things.
Yeah.
But they actually experimented quite a lot in the Brosnan era.
Oh yeah.
Too, when you think about it, and everyone kind of loves it. So it's like they're not like stock Bond films. I certainly don't think so, and I don't think that they're bad scripts. Really, I don't think there's many bad performances. I actually think they're all really good. I like all 4 of them a lot. And there's elements they tried to do a lot of great things. If you look at the opening to Die Another Day, for example, where he's getting tortured and his hair gets all bedraggled, and and I think that's a really cool idea, having Bond stuck in isolation like that and being tortured for a long time and being betrayed and being left there, like you see you hear about a lot of other spies throughout the franchise who have died on the job or whatever it is. And now that's Bond. I think that's a really, really strong idea. It's maybe just not executed perfectly or whatever.
No, it's
there's a lot of things he tried to do, even with the sort of female lead villain in The World Is Not Enough. Again, a great idea, and I think they executed that.
Very good.
But for what it's worth, compared to previous ones, it's still an experimental idea. They just done it really well. So experimentation is a common thing.
Yeah, I've always said I'd rather see a company try than just they're not bothering whatsoever. Like, I respect when I'm seeing they're trying to do something different here. I like that. This. I know that sometimes annoys people that they're not getting the usual, maybe what they normally get, but
I'm totally with you on that. I know how little control I have with what they do with these movies.
Yes,
nothing I do nor say is going to change anything.
No, they ain't going to care what I'm going to say.
So sit down and watch it and see what they do.
Yeah,
you don't have to like it, but like, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's kind of how I feel about, especially No Time to Die, obviously, because that's the big experimental thing.
Yes,
is the most divisive and all that, but like, they did it, and I kind of respect them.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
They're going, you know what? Should we just do it?
Yeah, and to me, it fits with the Craig era tone. He's been set up since Casino that he's a very more human Bond. He bleeds, he gets hurt, he has emotions. So it's weird why people just didn't accept that they would have done such a thing. It was weird when I saw that.
It's just the same thing can be said for the bit in For Your Eyes Only, where Roger the car off the cliff. Obviously, it's a much smaller scale, but like a moment of actual like darkness within an otherwise kind of quite light-hearted. Movie, obviously, For Your Eyes Only in terms of Roger Moore films is not light-hearted, but it still is. Compare it to Dalton film or a Craig film. And Roger said, "I really don't want to kick the car." And obviously said on the set that day, "No, you're doing it. We're gonna, this is what we're doing, and let's just do it." And I think that's like one of the best bits of the movie, because you go, "Wow, I just did it." They took it to that place and they convincingly did it. And I think that can be said for so many different aspects of all the individual films, and that's kind of what I like about them.
Oh yeah, definitely. Something I want to talk about here is these are 2 movies that I think the community is a bit kind of, not saying acid over, but a little bit kind of, they don't really care about. In the book, I noticed that you have a love for Spectre, and more so a movie I very much love I think is very underrated is Octopussy.
Oh yeah, man.
I do not get why Octopussy does not get the love. First of all, we'll talk about Spectre. We'll say Spectre first.
In terms of Spectre, I understand why people may not like it as much as others. And if someone ranked it as, the worst Bond film, there's probably a lot about their argument for placing it there that I would understand. I don't understand why Octopussy would ever be there.
Yeah.
I really don't. But Spectre, I think, again, like, there's certain aspects of it. Don't get me wrong; it's not my favorite, but it's like, it holds its own for sure. And I really enjoy watching the film, which is all I really rank my Bond films on. I enjoy it a lot, and there's a lot of things in it where I'm like, they did it. They tried very hard to do this thing. I certainly don't buy into the fact that it's hard to explain Spectre really, but I really like the Bond and Madeline love affair.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really a big fan of it, and I'm certainly not one of these people that thinks, well, there's Bond and Tracy, there's Bond and Vesper, and then there's Bond and Madeline. Like, I really like it's a trilogy of really good relationships.
I agree.
I think if you're one of the people that really likes the relationship between Bond and Madeline, then that makes liking Spectre so much easier, because the main thing people tend to not like about it is like, well, would he really do all these things for this person that he's just met? And obviously, I think No Time to Die does an even better job of doing that. I love their arc, and I like their relationship, and I believe it when I watch the film.
Okay, yeah, because I love the character Madeline, because the reason why I like her is because she's damaged like Bond. She's had this very secret life. Her father is a secret agent with Spectre. Do you know what I mean? She's probably never loved anyone in her life, so she's just got this guy that's come into her life, saved her, helped her, and she's just feeling all this emotion so quickly. And she's like, I love this guy. She doesn't. I always, hence her job as well. She's probably someone she needs to talk to someone. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
And I find there's a lot of interesting stuff, and I think Lea Seydoux is fantastic. I think she does it. This scene at the end of No Time to Die, the amount of the acting she does at that end scene is.
I think the single best performance in the entire Craig era is Lea Seydoux in No Time to Die. Genuinely.
Yeah.
And I like her a lot in Spectre also. And I do like Christoph Waltz as Blofeld.
I agree.
If I'd had my way, the only real thing I would have changed about Spectre is having more of a fight with the goons in the crater base. Turn that into an old school You Only Live Twice crater base fight, and that film is the best film ever. But he just sort of picks off a few people, and then they go back to London. That's the only bit of that film where I'm like, we nearly had it. But honestly, everything else in it, I think, is great.
Because I love Christoph Waltz when he's behind the glass. And it's when he just starts laughing. It's like, I've really put it through you, and he's just like, I just love these little moments he has, little kind of, he's just this manic coming out, and when he says cuckoo and all that, he's more kind of creepy, kind of just this oddball that I just, he's not had the greatest upbringing, and he puts that on Bond, everything he kind of puts on, and to be honest, he's one of my favorite. I'm not really the biggest concept of loving Blofeld. Like, I like Donald Pleasance. He's barely in You Only Live Twice. He's not really in it. He just has to deal with that terrified white cat that's on. Have you seen them shots?
It's unbelievable.
Terrible. I'm trying to think. Terry Savalas to me always felt like more. I don't know. I don't mean this in a bad way, but more of a strong henchman than really this mastermind. Kind of feeling. I like Terry Savalas, but
I mean, I really like that. I love Royal Majesty's Secret Service a lot.
Yeah.
And I love him as Blofeld, but it's one of those depictions of Blofeld was like, it probably didn't have to be Blofeld for that villain to work. So that could have really been, they could have created another one, and it would have worked perfectly as is. Apart from the fact that, like, at the start, you find out that Bond's been trying to hunt down Blofeld. For all this time, the character and the way that character works in that particular movie is much like Blofeld as any of the other ones. Even Charles Grey, I think, is more like traditionally Blofeld-esque than Telly Savalas is.
Yeah, I love Charles Gray for like different reasons. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just so he's like Roger Moore, where like, okay, yeah, he's maybe not like what maybe Bond should be, but he's so entertaining, and you kind of it's when I see some comments and going, it's like, oh, he's not what he should be. I was like, sometimes like it's just a bit of fun. Do you know what I mean? And Diamonds Are Forever is very much. That's more a Roger Moore movie than really Sean movie. Diamonds Are Forever, to be honest.
I think the exciting thing about the character of Blofeld is that we don't necessarily know what we're going to get, and it's got a much wider range of what it could be than perhaps Bond. Like Bond as a character, there's only so far you can push him. Before you start to go, is this really what?
Yeah.
But if you compare No Time to Die to like Octopussy, it's still big. The range at which, like, the tone of the character of Bond.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But Blofeld, we've never had a consistent one. So I've never really worried about kind of the character of Blofeld.
Yeah.
Really, it's kind of like he's a bit like putty, and you can morph him into whatever you need him to be for that particular film. And obviously, Charles Gray's depiction would not have worked in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, or vice versa. But they're kind of perfect for what they are. So he's kind of like a bit of a floater character that you can morph into whatever you need him to be. It's just Telly Savalas for me is the one that could have been somebody else more than any of the others. And he's still maybe my favourite Blofeld.
Yeah, I mean, I know some folks say the best Blofeld Brights is the one from Russia with Love and Thunderball. That whole the mystique is actually more interesting. Yeah,
there's certainly something to be said.
Yeah,
for it. It's like as you said before, like Telly Savalas's Blofeld feels a bit like a henchman.
Yeah.
If that was, and somewhere else in Switzerland, you found that Blofeld was still on the screen, sort of like maybe financing and running the allergy research lab, and Telly Savalas was just the head of the lab.
Yeah.
Could maybe have worked.
Could have worked. That way.
It's like, so yeah, Blofeld is kind of works best maybe when he's not actually there at all.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's and they tried to do. I like when they did the Connected and the Spectre movie with the meteorite that created that base was clearly a connection of what Spectre was. It was something that's hiding in the sky and it's coming to find its place and kind of take it. I like that little scene. And I like the idea that they really tried to go for, because that was all plot of Spectre was all surveillance and what are the people behind it, not really good people, and I liked all that stuff, and I like that. No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
It is a stretch to believe that Bond and Oberhauser grew up together and he's now doing all of this because he doesn't like James Bond. Don't get me wrong, that's mental. Whoever decided to do that is mental. But like, that's what we got. And do I like how they gave that to us? Kind of, yeah. Like, at its core, is it an idea that I think is good? Nah, of course it's not. Bond and Blofeld being stepbrothers, it is a terrible idea. But that's what they did, and the way in which they gave it to us, I actually quite like. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're just pretending to like it." Then
I think I've had that comment.
Like, do you know what I mean? It's like you're giving it a compliment, but you're also admitting that it's terrible. And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, maybe I am, but like, in terms of me just sitting in front of the telly and watching that film, enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
Some of the ideas in it are terrible. Same goes for Die Another Day.
Yeah.
Is a big space laser called Icarus a good idea? No, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's like is blowing up Kananga like a balloon a good idea? No, it's terrible.
Especially zooming into the face. That I never understood why that cameraman did that.
I love Live and Let Die, one of my favorite films ever. There's a lot of terrible ideas that they've done over the years. And it's okay for ideas to do mental things occasionally. If anything, that's kind of what makes it all so great.
That's it. Yeah.
If we move into Octopussy.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I was going to. Yeah.
That's kind of why I like that whole film. It's actually quite a serious and dark sort of story about, all the aspects that are at play Kamal Khan and, you know, blowing up the air base and all this stuff with the bomb. That's kind of the other way around. The idea is amazing, but the tone at which they give it to you is mental, as opposed to the idea being mental and depicted seriously.
Yeah,
it's kind of the whole thing is flipped on its head, and all the ideas and the core story of Octopussy is amazing. It's one of the best. There's every character in it is like really quite a threatening character who wants to do something terrible, and you've got the strong female lead who's also a bit of a villainess in her own way, but in the context of the story, she's not. She's the heroine. Octopussy's just peppered with just ridiculous stuff all the time, and I'm kind of like, well, the core is so solid that you can fill it up with anything you want, and the story itself is still really, really good.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of why I can understand why people don't like Spectre and would rank it low, but that's kind of why I can't understand why people would rank Octopussy low, because I see it as one that's got its core foundations and its core idea. It's got to be one of the strongest, like almost from a logical point of view.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be one of the strongest and well-written Bond films, in my opinion.
No, I completely, because that whole sequence, which nearly goes on for like an hour, I'm pretty sure it's a good chunk of the movie where Bond's trying to get the bomb in time and all that, and he's on top of the train. There's like so many like stuff that's going on. He uses a car on the track, whatever. You know, but it's, to me, it's just that is the proper Bond like escapism, and it's fun. It's got some really serious stuff in the movie. I think it's got one of the best opening sequences, where it was probably the first time where they go, this is a big, it's got a bit of everything. It had miniatures, it had special effects, explosions, whatever, everything. And I love Octopussy as a character. I love seeing Maud Adams. I think she's great. Kamal Khan, anytime he says Octopussy, it's brilliant.
There's I really like. I can only agree with you. It's one of the few ones where I really like everything about it.
Yeah,
like it's one of my favorite films ever, and it's genuinely good. Like it really annoys me. And it's seen as like this silly little silly little comedic too far Roger Moore Bond film, and I'm kind of like, nah, that's Moonraker. But Octopussy is actually like his best in every way. It's by far, in my opinion.
And
Roger was best.
And one of my favorite moments is always when I forget the name of the henchman. That's terrible, but it's when finally a henchman calls out on the shit he has to deal with when Khan tells him to go at the plane. He's like, out there.
Oh yeah, Kavinda,
it's a great wee moment. It's just like finally someone calling out. The villain's like,
no,
right, you go do this stuff.
He's still just like, okay, I guess I'll do it. But that whole sequence when Roger's hanging on the back of it's amazing, man. Like I just don't understand.
I know that, man.
The harsh criticism of Octopussy, and I will die on that hill. But you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I guess it's weird and wonderful. I guess, and it's maybe not traditional, or it's got that, but it's got aspects of other stuff that I love. Like it feels Indiana Jones-esque in the sense where it's got that kind of safari adventure film
very Temple of Doom
going on, and like that's just something that I love. So it's maybe just the vibe of Octopussy suits me to a T, whereas if you prefer your films to be more, you know, thrillery or whatever, like everyone's got them. For the same reason that I love Live and Let Die, because it's got that kind of like weird adventure film that reminds me a little bit of Indiana Jones. There, it's got that sort of there's a vibe, there's an energy to those two that just works really well for me personally, which makes me biased, but also from like a logical point of view, I do believe the Octopussy is like a very well written and performed film.
Completely agree, man. So this is kind of the last kind of bit for here, is pure and simply, what is in the near future for Billy Bond's art, for your work, and I've done a little question mark here. A museum?
I mean, Well, this is a funny thing because I've never actually displayed any of my art publicly in any kind of like gallery setting. I've never had a stall anywhere to sell anything like this. So it's entirely like on this desk and on a
There it
phone
is.
screen or computer screen. That's the only place it's been, and I'm actually not that good in person, like showing people in person. I get a little bit kind of like, just look at it on your phone. And it's like I don't know. There's like I'm just not like, and I don't consider my art to be like fine art in the sense of like we'll frame it and we'll put it up in a gallery. And fan art is also almost like a swear word in a gallery when they find out if all your ideas are inspired by a movie franchise. They'll just you kind of get written off as an artist who's got like their own thing going on. And I get it to an extent, but it's also kind of like, well, why are we being so, can we not just enjoy things, please, in life? Showing things in person has never really been on my radar, something that even particularly excites me that much. If I could somehow manifest like a very Bond centric small space and be fully in charge of how that operated, then that would be amazing. But it's just not really a feasible thing, and no one in a gallery would want to put my stuff up, and I understand that. So
I don't know about that. I'm sure.
I mean, but we'll see. In terms of what I'm doing next, I'm kind of not sure. Like, I had a very busy 2021. I did a lot of painting, doing the whole 60 years thing, and I did a lot of painting on the side of that as well. Did a lot of commissions that year. I just did a lot of painting that year. In 2022, I did a lot of sitting on my phone, posting them all, and didn't actually do a massive amount of painting last year. A lot of it was about showing off all the work that I did the previous year. And then somebody said, oh, you could probably make a book of this. And I took it too far and actually did it. And that, like, for some reason, I thought, oh, churn out a book. I'll just put them on to pages. I was like, I should maybe write something to go along with it. And then like 15 drafts later, you're like, okay, you're seriously writing a book now, which is like, I'm not a writer. It's not something that I've considered myself particularly good at. Obviously, you haven't read the book. The tone of it is very conversational. It's not like, it's not like I just don't have any writing flair. It sounds it's a bad way to plug your book.
But
do you know what I mean? It's like
I would like to say though, because I did read the book, and as I'm going to say right now, someone who has dyslexia and quite like bad dyslexia. See if someone comes up with a book of like, oh, here you go, you have to read all this, I'm going to be like, no, do you know what I mean? But you have managed to keep me like reading. Do you know what I mean? You've managed to keep me hooked, and the way you've done it, the way you've laid it all out, I think it's generally as I'm not trying to big your head up here. it's generally.
I'm glad, and that was kind of the purpose of it. It was never ever gonna be anything like remotely like a textbook or something like that. It was never going to be an art book so much in the sense that it's like a fine art book and let's talk about the deeper meaning of all of this. Because the meaning is so simple. I love James Bond, so paint lots of stuff with it. That's kind of it. Like, and I don't have a huge technical knowledge of any of this stuff. I'm just a fan of it all, who's indulging himself passionately in all of it. So I can't write a book from like any kind of academic side, be it the Bond side or be it the art side or be it the writing side, because I'm just sort of like winging it in all three of those categories and loving it.
That's
it. I was always just going to write something authentic about what I felt I had to say. And a lot of it's just about how I got into art, how I got into James Bond, how those two worlds collide, and why I specifically maybe painted those things. It's a simple sort of book, but it's very, very personal to me. Like, I do think it's quite a unique book in the range
definitely.
You can get. And the reason I'm proud of it, because it's like no one other than me could have done this this way. It's a very personal. It's a very book personal to me. And like when I was writing it, I was going, oh wow, you're actually. This feels a little bit like therapy right now, because you're writing about your sort of journey as a person because of James Bond, and that's something you've never done before, and you've never tried to put into words before, because in your day-to-day life you're just going through it and not actually taking a step back and being like, okay, let's write down in words what this is all meant to me. So it did feel like quite a personal thing to do. So yeah,
it feels very real when you read what you've kind
it's
of
all I can do.
Yeah. And I think, as I've said this before, where it's like people respect that more. They'll read this and go, "This doesn't feel like some big company's written this. It actually feels like a generally normal kind of bloke that's just writing and showing his passion."
That's all I ever wanted it to be, but it did take more time to make than I thought it was going to. So a lot of the things I wanted to paint last year kind of got put aside when I was like, "Oh no, you're seriously doing a book now," and I'd sort of like told people, "Expect a book soon," and then I'm like, "Okay, so you're gonna," and that was kind of a way to make sure I completed it.
Yeah.
That took up quite a considerable amount of time in the latter stages of last year. And then over the course of Christmas and whatever, I've just been very busy. Like, I sold the book, and a lot of that time then becomes you package stuff up and you send it out. And
of course, yeah.
It's like I'm the business end, as much as I appreciate it. If anyone buys it and the book's sold out, not that there was a huge amount of copies, but 100 for me was I'm so proud. I'm honestly so proud of that. It's ridiculous. And I was so delighted by it and thankful for it.
Yeah. I was going to mention
I hate
that
the business end of all. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah. Because I did notice that it was sold out. Is there maybe have you got ideas of a second edition, or is that it?
At some point, I will probably run a bit of a pre-order for the second edition, because everything is entirely self-funded by me. There's no backer or anything who's going to print a second batch other than me, and it is a case of I go and I buy them, and I buy them all, and I give all the money to buy them. So it's upfront. It's a lot of money for me to print 100 copies. Not a huge amount of financial risk the first time around, because I'd spoken to people about it who said buy it, but when you get to that second one, you don't know whether you're going to sell.
Of course,
I don't know how many I would sell, so it becomes more of a financial risk to get a second batch, and I kind of want to let it settle for a while, almost as a thank you for the people that bought the first ones, made the effort to buy the first one. I don't know how all the whole book thing works, so I was just winging it, but maybe at some point I'll do a second run if the demand is there to do it. And if I don't, I'm absolutely happy with saying, well, I did a book and I sold it out.
You did it, man. Yeah, definitely.
And in terms of what I'm going to do this year, hopefully just paint again, which is like, it really did turn into a year. Did a lot of traveling for Bond related stuff last year. I wrote the book. I did a lot of the business end of things, which was like packaging orders and like uploading the website and probably like work. You know what I mean? Like business work. So this year I do want to just like paint again. I've got a few things in mind that I'm gonna hopefully do. The main three is sort of celebrating the films that have their anniversaries this year, which is 1963 From Russia with Love, and then 1983 Octopussy, and whatever the other one is. Is it just those two? No, 1973. Live and Let Die. So that's just showing how much pre-planning I've put into this. I want to do a series on each of them.
Right.
A deeper dive onto them, more stylistically individual to that movie. I want to do that. I kind of had this idea that I want to do kind of like an illustrated walking tour of the Bond locations in London, where I'll actually go down to London do the walk and paint the walk that I do.
Right.
So that you can kind of scroll through it on social media as kind of like an interactive, illustrated walk of London, visiting Bond locations, accompanied by me actually in those locations. What I see. So that's kind of an idea that I'm hoping will come to fruition, but I've put no more planning in it than what I've literally just said right there.
Yeah.
And then just see where the wind takes me this
That's
year.
it, man. Yeah, quite right. Well, you've done a damn good job so far, man. Honestly, like it's been great seeing you build up so quickly and so well, and it's
I'm amazed that I've not burned out yet. Like seriously, like
yeah.
it's a credit to my love for James Bond that I've not
Yeah,
burned out yet.
it is, man. Yeah.
It's been a lot, just many hours.
Yeah, I would have gave up years ago.
And I'm still just excited now to do something next. So
That's good.
We'll see.
Well, that's good, man. That's good.
I just want to no pressure this year. That's kind of
quite right. Well, I think after the book and that whole the 60th, I think you've done a lot, man. And
just chill out and paint and share the process.
That'd be great. That's great. So to kind of round off the interview, I've got a couple of viewers' questions we'll kind of run through here. So I would normally do this kind of off the cuff, but you already know this question that I'm going to tell you because I thought I better message you on this one. So from Max Dorey was, what do you aspire to accomplish in art and life? Good luck.
That's such a deep question.
I know, right?
Kind of appreciate it, but at the same time, it's like.
Yeah.
Just ask me what my favorite Roger Moore film is. What do I want to? What was the question? What
do you aspire to accomplish in art and life?
What do I aspire to accomplish in art? Probably just to maintain enjoying it.
Yeah.
And try not to turn it into work. As much as I've take on artwork that people commission me to do, but I think more from the mentality point of view.
Yeah,
it's like I don't want to be sitting painting, thinking I don't want to be painting right now.
Yeah.
But here I am. I kind of want to always be. If I can maintain enjoying it at all times, then that's kind of the only thing I could really ask for. I don't have huge aspirations to be a famous artist, or I just want to enjoy what I do.
Quite right, man. Yeah,
celebrating Bond. Like people occasionally say to me, but will you run out of things to paint from Bond eventually? Maybe, I don't know. Will I just discover new ways to do it? I don't know. So just continue to celebrate Bond through art and hopefully enjoy it at all times. That's kind of what do I want to aspire to in life? I don't know, man. I kind of like my life now.
That's fair, man. Yeah.
If I'm being brutally honest, I would class myself as happy right now. So if I can maintain that, sweet. Honestly, I'm not hugely success driven.
Yeah.
Kind of guy. I'm pretty low key. I quite like keeping myself to myself, and so long as I can allow myself time to do the things that I enjoy and make however much money I need to make to do that on quite a medium scale. I'm not looking for big outlandish life goals, but if I can financially maintain a life where I can allow myself time to do the things that I enjoy, that's kind of all I'm really looking for.
That's it, man.
I honestly don't have huge I don't know. I quite like my life now.
That's good, man. Yeah, that's all that matters. Yeah.
If it stays like this for a long time, sweet. If it gets better, hell yeah. If it gets worse, I'll try and push through it. I'm quite a relaxed and mentally positive kind of guy.
That's good, man. That's good.
Through good and bad stuff.
Yeah.
I tend to just maintain a level of chill. Just keep it real, man.
No, quite right. So next up from James Roberts, he's asked, how has your artistic style changed over time?
It's certainly, I kind of struggle with it. I'm actually at a point right now where I'm after the year of doing all the paintings for the 60 years, I was so in the zone with that specific style. And I think if you flick through the book, which is packed with a lot, mostly stuff from that collection and stuff before and after it, the style of it is very consistent. The way in which I work has been applied to most of the paintings in that. So I kind of want to break away from that because I've done that a lot, and that's feels now like my comfort zone. And the only way I feel like it's developed is I now have a comfort zone, which is something I never had before. I was when you're sort of learning, I mean, I've been painting seriously for maybe 5 years maybe, and it takes a while for you to be comfortable doing anything, and you go through this whole phase of learning where you're like, well, will I ever just be able to, for lack of a better phrase, shit out a painting that is good? And that's like kind of an unthinkable thing for a long time. Whereas now I have a comfort zone where I know I can execute a painting quite well, and it's not going to be a stressful ordeal, and it's going to be in this style that you consider to be yours. Now I've kind of a bit thirsty for feel like I did before and challenge myself. Perhaps I want to. So I don't know where that will go stylistically, because the only thing I've done so far is just meander through learning until you find the materials that you enjoy to work with. And for me, that was watercolors on paper with the application of ink. Also, that's kind of like you start with every possibility and you meander through them all until you find what you like, and that's what I like. So I don't see that changing, but it's more what can you do within that. So stylistically, nothing's really changed, because I feel like I've only now found my style in the last couple of years, and all I've done in the last couple of years is all what you see in the book. Stylistically quite similar. So if a stylistic change was going to come, it's not actually happened yet. So really just getting more comfortable is the only significant change. Getting better at painting. I've not had my own style long enough for that to change into something else. Really.
It sounds all interesting, and kind of keep yourself on your toes a little bit with.
I do want to paint bigger paintings this year. Like a lot of the stuff you see in the book is probably, like A4 to A3 in size. And if you're to compare it to paper sizes, I would quite like to do.
Because like there's a bit of an example. There here, as you're saying.
If you look at that picture, that there is probably true to life in terms of the size of that. That painting is probably actually that size. In its original form. So I do want to try and do something a bit bigger. Maybe, as I said before, like a lot of the paintings I do, like they are executed entirely in an evening. I'd really quite like to do something bigger that requires more sessions to complete.
I just realised I opened the book to get that image, even though I've actually got. I don't know what I did that. I've actually. I forgot. I've got it right here.
In every format, man.
What can I say? So the next question from Bond Up North is: who is your favourite Bond art creator?
I don't like ranking them, man. I mean, Sean Longmore. Is the man. There's many, and I made a post recently on my Instagram actually, which I wish I had them to hand, which is like I treated myself to a whole bunch of Bond related artwork at the end of last year, from all of my favorite. There's so many. If I had to pick one, I would maybe say Sean, but I like them all. They're all different. What I like about Sean is that it is very, very different to what I do. So there's that element of fantasy in my mind where I'm like, I have no idea what the artistic process is to make that. Like I don't do any digital art. I don't do posters, and so like he's the one where I'm like, I have no idea how you do what you do. So when I look at it, it's like it's not being judged by like, oh well, I know roughly how that's made, and I look at all digital art. I'm kind of like, I don't actually know how that. I don't know I'm just a traditional, like I like a pencil and so I would say John, and I've met him a few times, and he's a great.
Have you? Is he nice? He seems cool. Because I remember I messaged him and I was just like saying, it's like, oh, I'm just wondering if we ever get more, Bond stuff, but he's so busy with Big Finish now. And doing, but then obviously, as you know, I'm a Doctor Who fan, so I'm loving seeing that stuff.
Absolutely,
so I've kind of got
the best of both worlds,
like, really.
Because I've got what I do have to hand. I'll show you, which is
really
sweet, which you'll like.
Right.
Is a Sean Longmore in a frame, and it's the Matt Smith era.
Yes. I actually
This is on my wall, man. This is
yeah.
pride placed on my wall.
I managed to get one of them as well. I don't have it. That's a very nice frame that you've got it in. I've just got it with blue tack on the wall. very, very nice there. I've got it because I mentioned was like, oh, are you ever gonna do this? You know, post is like because he's got a job. He can't actually sell that on his own now. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, no, that's fair, man. I understand. But his stuff is, you know, he's like recently brought John Pertwee alive again on you know, and
I mean, John has now quit his job to be a full-time artist.
Oh, right.
So like we're, you know, successful at what he does and deservedly so.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So just I'm not gonna say he's my favorite because that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, if I had to say which one gets my bank card out of my wallet,
yeah,
quickest.
Yeah,
I just love what he does, and it's for a variety of reasons, and it's not because I like him more so than anybody else is. It's just what he does is alien to me as a watercolor painter. I don't know what his process is. Sits at his computer and then that happens. I don't know.
But that's it. People love seeing, you know, it's the different, you know, people, you know, like myself, I love seeing your work and I love seeing Sean's work and how different they are, you know, because it would be a boring wall if it all looked the exact same. Do you know what I mean?
Precisely. And it's everyone's individual take on James Bond, and everyone's personality comes through in what they do.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's many great creators out there. I don't want to start listing them because if someone gets left out, but
of course.
It's an abundant place, the Bond art.
Oh, definitely. But Sean's your favourite, yes.
No.
Okay, so this is the last question.
It's just got a very special place in my heart.
Of course. So last question, a friend of ours from Jason Kim. What non-Bond movie scene would you love to paint or will paint?
That's an amazing question.
Yeah.
Probably something from Indiana Jones, I would say.
Right.
In terms of like, if I was thinking about what I do now and how I could translate it to something else, like that's the immediate franchise that I would go to next. But my favorite other franchise other than Bond is probably Harry Potter, and I have felt inklings to paint something from Harry Potter at some point.
That castle would look good.
There's a lot of cool stuff. So it's going to be something from one of those two. Indy on a horse would be just a sweet painting to do, because it would kind of like fit into that sort of country western-esque style, or something probably from Harry Potter, I would say.
And Indiana Jones does feel still Bond, obviously, because as we know,
I can literally go and just paint Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Like, but it's Indiana Jones this time. If I had to say a specific, maybe the Hogwarts Express, you know, as it goes round the curved bridge.
Yeah.
I should know the place, being a Scotsman, but I can't remember the name of the bridge. But that would be cool, because then that's kind of got the personal element of I'm painting Scotland as well, which kind of is why I love the painting that I did of the Aston Martin.
It's a great one.
Like Glen Steve, it's sort of just like, well, I'm painting my home as well. So maybe that something from Harry Potter. Billy's Harry Potter art.
Right, get that going. Second channel.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Billy. It's been an absolute pleasure for coming on to the Ginger Geek Show, the first episode, the first guest. This is how I'm going to top this.
Sorry for rambling so much, man.
Oh no, absolute pleasure.
You started it.
I'll just sit here. You just go ahead. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them scenarios. So I'll pop some links down below on the in the share, so people, as it says, you can go on to your Instagram. That's also where you've got your shop as well. But if you want to just go on to straight onto the shop, what would that be again?
It is either Billy's Bond Art on Etsy, or it's www.billysbondart.bigcartel.com.
Right.
Which kind of like, the Etsy shop only really exists because of some EU related Brexit red tape.
Right.
Purely because Etsy can cover part of the customs declaration that I actually can't do myself without paying a third party to do it.
Right.
But either of the two.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
but it's maybe easier for people. Just go on Instagram. You've got a link there. I know on the page you can go straight
the
to
link
it.
in my bio will take you where you need to go. Yeah.
I think your stuff, as I say, it's fantastic and all that. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me, man.
It's been great. Thank you. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, hopefully we'll get going. So, yeah. So all I'll say is goodbye, then, Billy. Thank you very much.
Much appreciated. Thanks, man.
See you later.
And there we have it, the very first episode of the Ginger Geek Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you once again to Billy for doing that interview. I hope you enjoyed it. It was great having him on, and I just want to say thank you once again for doing it. It really was great. And as it says, I will put his links on the description, so please check his stuff out if you haven't seen his stuff. He does fantastic artwork. They really are great. So yes, all I can say here now is please like, share and subscribe. That would be fantastic. Hopefully more videos in the future. Hopefully we get more shows. Hopefully this won't just be the last. Hopefully we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it will not. But until then, see you later.